There we go. Hi, Emily. I see that you've joined us. There is a prompt on the shared screen, so feel free to read that and respond in the chat. Everyone else who's here can also do the same. You don't necessarily have to put your major, but what makes you interested in teaching? Everyone here is somehow connected to or interested in education, so we can respond to that. And Darcy, looks like you know who Emily is. Okay. Darcy, did you pay Emily to come? Is that how this worked? Okay.
Yeah, no, Emily's a great part of Calteach, but she took a year off to do some amazing work. So Emily, so good to see you.
Yes, so good to see you too. I'm sorry I can't really stay for long, but I thought I'd pop in before I have to head to something else.
Well, Emily, I'm glad you're here. We are going to give you a little information, and apparently you're part of Calteach, according to Darcy, so it'd be great to have you in Summer Research Institute at some point.
Absolutely, yeah, I would love that.
So normally, and Darcy knows this, for the first part of any class that I'm teaching, because things get awkward in the silence on Zoom when people are coming in, I usually have some music going or something, and I didn't have that queued up this time, so I apologize for that. But people are welcome to hum or something.
Maybe you could sing for us.
Oh, no, we won't do that. This is being recorded.
Oh.
That will chase Emily away right away.
Right, so we want to keep it.
But Alan, I appreciate the confidence there. When you get to know me more, you might not say anything about the singing, but we'll see.
So I don't know what David said, but my name's Alan Quo. I work at the Genome Institute, and I sort of am presiding over or at least partly presiding over the Algae project, and so we're thinking of using our microcosm tool as a teaching platform, I guess, provide one possibility if students are interested.
Well, that would be fabulous. I think so. As a personal note, you said Algae project. Is that right, Alan? As
yes.
As in algae. Okay.
As an algae, yeah. The stuff that's in your fish tank and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first job as an undergraduate research assistant, and then after I graduated was at the Genetic Plants and Biology building at UC Berkeley, and I worked with algae. And one of my jobs, of course, was to keep it alive for a long time. And so I have a great fondness for algae-related projects. I will do my best to sing the praises of algal research.
What algae were you working?
So Chlamydomonas reinhardti.
Of course, yes.
Of course, I remember that because. Because everyone would always ask. So yes, that was the model that we used.
Now Sabia Merchants on campus pushing that flagship organism ever further, as I'm sure Alan can attest to, along with others on the campus.
I mean, we have to devise what kind of teaching modules there would be, I suppose, but but there's a reasonably good chance that it might involve chlamydomonas. So that's the most well-developed organism on our port.
Well, Alan, I'm really happy that you're here with us because you just mentioned teaching modules, and I see Caitlin and Darcy and folks are kind of sharing what their interest is in education in the chat. So yeah, I think your interests ultimately align with what we're really going for here. And so I'm pleased, and of course you will help fact check David as he speaks a little bit later. So thank you. So I think, you know what, we're gonna wait like one more minute because that'll be Berkeley time, and then we're gonna get started. And Caitlin's got us recording anyway. And let's see what Darcy said in here, what makes me interesting? What a question.
By the way,
Megan.
I do have to run to a lab meeting right now. I thought I'd poke my head in to see what was up, and I realized that you guys are also starting at Berkeley time. But I see that the recording, or that the info session is recorded, so maybe I can check it out later.
Emily, it is being recorded, so please check it out when you
Absolutely.
can. There's also going to be some contact information on one of the slides if you have questions for us after you check it out.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. We didn't do much, but good luck at your lab meeting.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, you too. So Michael, it looks like you've joined us. Welcome. I think, why don't we go ahead and get started here. We've got an audience of one at the moment and a lot of participants. And Michael, you're going to be able to ask a lot of questions, and we will hopefully be able to respond to many of those. But in case you haven't gotten a chance, Michael, and you're just kind of getting set up where you are, there's a shared prompt on the slide here that says, please share your major and response to the following. So what makes you interested in teaching? So it'd be great to know what your major is and your interest in education or teaching. Now, just, Michael, so you know you're in the right place. Let me go ahead and share the title screen here. So this is the Calteach Summer Research Institute information session for the upcoming summer. So that's why it says summer 2022. And so we're going to be here sharing a little information about the program, expectations, the application process, and we lost Michael. Okay, Michael's back. So Michael, we're glad to have you back. Just getting started here for our agenda for this very informal information session. I'm going to start with just a little bit of welcome and background. Then I'm going to hand it off for a few moments to Darcy Massey, who's been good enough to join us to give us a little bit of the student perspective. She just participated last summer, so she has this very fresh in her mind and she can tell you a little bit more about it. And then we've invited David Gilbert from the Joint Genome Institute to come and speak a little bit from the perspective of one of our partners from one of the labs that a lot of our students worked in last summer as well. And then we'll finish it off with Caitlin Meisen from Calteach, who's going to give you just a quick rundown of the actual process for applying. So you probably want to hang around for that one. And then we'll have some time for question and answer at the end. And of course, Michael, this is being recorded, so you'll be able to see this. If you miss something, you don't need to take a bunch of screenshots. You'll be able to see it all later on your own kind of convenience. Okay, so very, very, very briefly, what is SRI, right? It is a full-time paid summer research internship. And I've put in there on the slide essentially what we mean by those things. So full-time as in 40 hours per week, approximately. You will be paid $6,300 for your summer work. And it runs during summer session C, which is June 20th to August 12th. And it says the last part, these will be in different labs on campus or with some of our partner institutions. And David is here and he will be able to tell us a little bit about one of those potential institutions. So this is just in a nutshell, what is SRI? And our goal kind of has a lot to do with the goals of Berkeley as a research institution. Obviously, as a research institute, Berkeley is committed to not only investigating and figuring out more things about the world, how it works, but also in guiding others who are interested in doing research as well, who want to join this community of researchers. So as part of this, SRI is designed to really help create some opportunities for you to engage in some really cutting edge STEM research, stuff that not too many people in the world can really have access to, but you can. We're hoping to provide those opportunities for you to also collaborate with a community of practice. So not just researchers, but other teachers and other people, other folks who are learning to become a teacher soon. So you can kind of develop expertise together along the way. We're hoping that it allows you to kind of develop an inquiry lens. So if you're interested in teaching at some point and you're doing lesson design, you can kind of put more of an inquiry lens on it to figure out, how can I make this a little bit more about finding out how the world works for my students? And ultimately, we are hoping that what you can then do is to help guide future students to develop those kinds of problem-solving skills, research skills in K-12 classrooms. So this is kind of our overarching goal for what we're trying to accomplish at SRI. Now, in terms of what you can expect, you apply and you're accepted. Here's what you can expect. So again, I said that it was full-time, so it's roughly 40 hours per week. Most of that, 36 hours of that basically, is going to be in your lab with your research mentors, working with the other researchers in that lab, whether it's postdocs or grad students or research faculty. And they're going to be mentoring you to try and develop a research question and a proposal, to practice different research techniques that go along with whatever is required in your lab. Obviously, to analyze data, to figure out what patterns are you noticing in that data and what do they mean. And then in the end, to design and present a research poster. So the 8 weeks, which this internship is 8 weeks, it culminates in a research poster event, a poster conference that we set up. And you will be able to share a lot of what you learned and how you learned it, what you did, with a larger audience. Now, for 4 hours a week, right, because we said 40 hours total, you'll be getting guidance from myself and Caitlin and the rest of the Calteach staff to kind of help you in translating a lot of your research experience into classroom instruction. So we're going to help guide you to develop and teach an inquiry-based lesson that's roughly based on some of the principles and practices that you're going to be using in your own lab during the summer. And we'll also help you navigate a lot of the current math, science, and engineering standards when it comes to curricular standards to make sure that whatever inquiry-based lesson you do develop is also standards aligned. And this gives you practice for when you do become a classroom teacher, right? When you're developing your own lessons, your own assessments. So this gives you practice kind of seeing how you would do that through the lens of the research that you're engaged with over the summer. Now, in terms of some of the benefits, we really feel obviously very strongly that you are going to benefit in a lot of different ways. The first one I'm going to point out is, as part of the Calteach minor, there is a research experience requirement for everybody. And so there's a couple of ways you can go about fulfilling that. One of them is a course that you can take during the fall or the spring, which is a research methods course, or you can be part of SRI. Right, and we also provide you with a lot of the experience with research methods. You get to, of course, be in an actual lab doing research, and so this is the other way that you can fulfill that requirement for your Calteach minor. I will also add that the summer, if you take what I've circled there is the UGIS 189. It is now called EdSTEM 189, so there's a slight name change. Otherwise, it's the same thing. What I didn't mention is this little snapshot here. It shows kind of the progression of courses you would take as a Calteach student, beginning with EdSTEM 82 during your first year, and then so on. So you'll notice that the research experience is really geared towards maybe your second or third year, your junior year. We really like to see applicants that have taken at least 1 or 2 Calteach courses before they apply for SRI, but we have been known to make exceptions in the past. So that is not something that needs to be a roadblock for you if you're a freshman. Now, besides fulfilling the research requirement, one of the great things that I sort of alluded to before is that you're going to be able to work alongside researchers and university faculty who are really kind of at the cutting edge of what the world knows and has figured out. And this is kind of an amazing experience that can't really be replicated in too many places in the world. So like, you don't really want to pass that up, and to be able to work in some of these research labs that people work really hard to try and get into, and you're a student, and normally undergrads don't get this experience. and you do. So this is just to be able to work in some of these labs and with the brilliant minds that are in the labs is quite is quite a benefit. As part of this, and I hadn't mentioned this before, you're also going to have a chance in certain circumstances to collaborate with classroom teachers, because not only are there undergrads like yourself who might be applying, but there's also teachers who are applying for the Summer Research Institute. And so a lot of them will be working in the same labs that you will be working in, so you can work alongside them. You'll learn some of the same lab techniques as the teachers, but you also get the benefit because you get to talk to them about, what does this look like in the classroom? If I were to bring this into a lesson and into a classroom, what are some things that I really have to think about more, because I don't have as much teaching experience as you. And so you'll get to kind of learn not just from the research mentors, but also from some of the teacher mentors that will be participating in the program. And finally, you of course receive a stipend. And so one thing that sets this research experience apart from the other research class that you can take to fulfill your Calteach requirement is, for this one you can get paid. The other one is a course. This one is separate. It's during the summer, so you actually get paid to do this, to be part of the SRI experience. So that's just very briefly, in a nutshell, kind of the background, a little bit about some of the benefits and what you can expect. I think it might be good for me to turn this over right now to Darcy, who's here, because I think she'll be able to tell you maybe really what you can expect, because I can tell you from the administrative side, and from, as a lecturer, I can tell you what to expect. But Darcy went through it. She was a student. She's here with us. Darcy, if you want to go ahead and unmute, you've already done it. You can feel free to let us know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ari. Just everything you just said just kind of shows how great SRI is and was for me. But I'm very excited to expand. So yeah, like I said, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. And I just want to start with a bit of an introduction, and then I'm excited to share about my SRI experience with you all. So with a little intro, my name is Darcy, and I'm a fourth year here at Cal. So my major is conservation resource studies, and I have also pursued the wonderful Calteach minor. So yeah, from there, let's just jump right into it. Why did I decide to spend my summer before senior year with the SRI program? Well, to start, two things. First, the idea of research experience sounded quite compelling, as well as honestly the amazing stipend that would come with it. And truly it was super worthwhile. So when I got into the program, I was very stoked to accept, and then eagerly awaited to see what my placement would look like, which is a big and exciting thing. So one day I got an email from a data science professor, Deborah Nolan, asking if I'd be interested in helping instruct the BUDS program, Berkeley Unboxing Data Science. So BUDS is a 5-week program where local high school students get introduced to data science, and it's taught by Berkeley students. And the email had good old Professor Ari looped in. At the time, I was confused why. Little did I realize he'd be the amazing instructor of my weekly class. So that brings me to my next point. Of course, I accepted. And my next point is sharing just what a day in the life looked like this past summer for me. So Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, I'd spent approximately 12 to 5 p.m. helping facilitate Berkeley Unboxing Data Science. I was especially forming relationships with my 5 small group students and helping teach them data science. I was personally strengthening my own data science skill set while also strengthening my ability to teach. Meanwhile, every Wednesday, I would attend the associated SRI class from 1 to 5. And if there's any 4-hour class I could survive, it'd be a Calteach class. And well, you're in luck, it is a Calteach class. So lastly, my Fridays then were dedicated to research, the thing I initially signed up to do. So yeah, most people will end up doing research all 8 weeks, but you hear in my experience, it was a joy. I got the joy of doing buds, hone in on my teaching skills. I want to be a teacher, and then do kind of a smaller scale research project in conjunction. And so everyone's experience in the program is pretty unique, and that makes the program all more exciting, truly. And so for the research component, I was given an amazing mentor who specialized in statistics and coding. She helped guide me through my research analysis, and we met weekly. So what was my research? It was something I chose to pursue. I reached out to an education professor who was willing to share some of her data regarding teacher study groups. Teacher study groups are a form of professional development, and I decided to pose my main research questions around if the teacher study groups helped a specific group of teachers just in their practice overall. And to do this, I used Python, problem solved with my mentor, and created hundreds really of visualizations using Seaborn in Jupyter Notebook. So I want to share now where this research took me, and then I'll wrap up on the experience as a whole. So I realized actually how much I loved the data analysis portion of the research, and the facet of research where you get to work with data and like essentially make new discoveries. I loved it. So this semester I was fortunate enough to be able to continue actually working with the teacher study group data, and actually worked with the accompanying professor side by side. And fast forward to where we are now, we are currently about to send off a paper to get published. So I'm so excited to say that when we get the paper through, I'll be a published author. And honestly, thank you so much, Summer Research Institute. Yeah, truly, little did I know. So overall, this past summer, I gained a lot of experience and professional skills. I learned a lot more about Python than I ever imagined, learned greatly about the importance of inspiring my future students to become scientists and researchers. Yeah, and learned how much I find research to be extremely fun and rewarding. So to wrap it up, I could go on and on, but I said, for the sake of time, I hope you enjoyed hearing about my experience. If you have any questions, please reach out over email. I strongly encourage you to apply. It'll be summer of growth, community, learning. You won't be alone. You'll have amazing fellow students by your side, and Professor Ari, who will do everything to support you and help accommodate your needs. All right, thank you so much, y'all.
Wow, thank you, Darcy. That was very energizing, I have to say. Wait, Darcy, I know. Thank you for doing this, Darcy. I know you weren't feeling well, and so I appreciate you taking the time and effort to do this. Can I ask you something before you go? Because we're keeping this informal, and you mentioned something that kind of triggered a thought in my head. So for those of you who are interested in applying, the focus for the last 2 years and this coming summer has been on data science. A lot of the almost all the research projects have something to do with data science. And I know as part of that, there's a certain amount of coding that you're gonna have to learn in order to kind of analyze some of the data. Darcy, you mentioned Python. Now, can I ask, was that something you already knew how to use before SRI? If not, was there something that you did to help prepare you, or did the program prepare you? Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Ari, and I have plenty of time to stay. I'm very excited to talk about SRI. So honestly, y'all, I didn't have much experience in Python, to be honest. When I was teaching the data science to the high school students, I had a co-facilitator who was kind of like the Python master, data science major, and then they took me on as the Calteach student. I even expressed them like, oh, y'all, like, honestly took a CS class in high school. And they were like, don't worry about it. We believe in you. So I kind of learned as I went. So yeah, frankly, I didn't have a lot of experience, but I learned actually a lot of coding skills through the summer, which clearly helped me into the semester. And yes, like SRI, y'all will take a chance on you. They believe in anyone and everyone.
Thank you, Darcy. I really want to make sure that people who are interested but a little concerned, like I don't have a CS background, I don't know all the the latest coding. I want you to apply anyway if you're interested in the teaching and in the doing research and the STEM aspect of everything, because we can help support you in the other ways that you might need. And so thank you, Darcy, for kind of sharing that, your experience, obviously, but also that little piece of it. In case you missed something in what Darcy said, she did say she worked with high school students as part of her project. So like Darcy mentioned, this is a fairly unique, it's going to be a fairly unique experience depending on what lab you're in. Everyone is going to be looking at things in a different field. Some of you will get to work with high school or middle school students. Some will be working with other participants that may not be classroom students. So it does tend to be fairly different depending on who you're working with. Okay, thank you, Darcy. I want to get right to, I want to introduce you right now to David Gilbert. He is the Senior Manager of Communications and Outreach at the, fix your collar, Department of Energy, the Joint Genome Institute. So I don't want to take any more time. I want David to be able to speak now. We were fortunate enough that David took a chance with us and took on three students and one teacher last summer in various projects there. So I'll let David kind of give his perspective on how that went and what JGI is about.
Wonderful, thanks, Ari. And I learned something just now, and that is that Darcy and I have something in common. It's hard to imagine, I know that, but I too was a conservation and resource studies major back in the Jurassic period. So it's encouraging to hear that, one, the major still exists, and two, such a fantastic representative is participating in Calteach and spreading the good word. So kudos to you, Darcy, bravo. And kudos to Calteach and Ari for taking the leap of faith with JGI, and to my colleagues who, I don't know, what, 2 weeks before the program began, we put something together. So Alan, you should be rest assured here that we'll have a lot more prep time to get our act together than we did in the previous summer. So I've got this long, pretentious title here, and I'll try to explain what I mean by democratizing access to data. But first, I feel duty-bound. Even though I was wandering the halls of Giannini Hall back in the Jurassic period, I had no idea that just up the hill, our neighbors at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, the birthplace of team science, home to 14 Nobel Prizes, is the largest US Department of Energy funded biology effort going around the country. And the Joint Genome Institute, of which we're part of as one of the 5 user facilities, is part of the fabric, the research ecosystem, not just at Berkeley Lab and the University of California, of which we're staff members, but worldwide. So back in 2020, December of 2019, we moved into this fantastic new building, the Integrative Genomics building, and then fundamentally had to move out a couple months later with this worldwide health crisis we're dealing with. But we went on, most of us remotely who do computational work or communications work, and those of us who were able to get back into the building and start serving our user community. And I'll share with you a little bit about what that entails. So our focus is on providing research infrastructure worldwide in the areas of bioenergy, carbon cycling, and biogeochemistry. We are unique in that capacity to serve researchers worldwide. So we have internal expertise in the areas of plants, fungal and algal, and metagenome, or what you might know of as microbiome research, but related to our environment, not necessarily to our humanness ourselves, and also the microbial world out there. So we've got scientists and postdocs, graduate students working with us to push the frontiers of these particular disciplines. It's underpinned by all this technology that we put into place and make available to researchers worldwide. And fundamentally, then we crank out the data and provide the data back to those who've tapped into our resources and serve up those data through our data systems to advance the frontiers of science. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So I'm always challenged to come up with ways to best picture the flow of data. And I've used Wikipedia probably about 5 times today already. So it's usually in the parlance of most students, and that is, how much information is Wikipedia generating? And you look, okay, here's a visual to try to give you an idea. So how does the Joint Genome Institute's data component compare? So in this first 3 months of our fiscal year, in other words, October to through December, we'll have generated the equivalent of, say, 87.5 trillion nucleotide bases of information, which is over 3,800 times what exists in Wikipedia. So by the end of the year, we'll have generated the likes of over 15,000 times what's in Wikipedia. And moreover, to give you an idea, that is the equivalent of sequencing in plants and microbes, fungi and algae, the equivalent of the entire city of Berkeley in humans. So if you think of one nucleotide to one byte, that's one city of 120,000 people. So our worldwide user community is about 2,100. And those are people who come to us with scientific questions that can be informed with DNA sequencing, DNA synthesis, metabolomics, data science, data analysis. They submit competitive proposals, and once vetted for scientific merit and DOE relevance, we do them for free, providing we can make those information available in publications and the rest of the community out there. And that primary user community is really a smaller component of those who tap into our data through our platforms that I will mention. And this is all motivated by something called FAIR, which is findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. And that is, as a taxpayer-funded organization, we need to make those data available as widely as possible. And so it inspired me to think, can we make this understandable at the high school community college level, for instance? And that's where Calteach came in. So when I think of Earth, it is really this incredibly complex set of organism and interactive relationships that we are at the Joint Genome Institute interested in characterizing. Some people call it microbial dark matter. Physicists may take issue. So the data platform that we use to interpret the data in microbes and microbiomes or metagenomes out there is called the Integrated Microbial Genomes and Microbiomes Data Management System, or IMG or IMGM. And the 2 Calteach students that my colleague Rekha Sasadri so kindly mentored over this summer, Iron Kao, who's a high school chemistry teacher in Fairfield, California, and Jashin Sun, who is a Calteach student, worked on very diverse projects. One, in Iran's case, related to looking at how hydrocarbons are broken down in our environment and how some of our projects inform that. And Jashin worked on looking at what I think of more as biodiscovery in the extremes. In other words, like hyperthermal vents, or those organisms that can live in very extreme environments. So the other project that Calteach was involved with in this last summer looked at these wonderful organisms called fungi. As we know, are sources of antibiotics and enzyme producers. And my colleagues, Sajid Harias and Stephen Mondo, were so kind to mentor both our Amanda Gonzaga, who's environmental sciences major, and Arthi, who is an MCB major. And they took on also similarly diverse challenges, looking in Amanda's case at the zombification of these ants that have a relationship with fungi in their environment. And you'll just have to read the poster to find out more about it. And in Arthi's case, looking at these fungal pathogens in Candida albicans, both in human pathogens, plant pathogens as well. So I'm grateful to the two of them for ushering those students through, and to the students for providing these fantastic posters for the Calteach poster session, but also for the JGI's annual Genomics of Energy and Environment meeting, which was attended this year by over 1,100 people worldwide. So this coming summer, excitingly enough, we have algae, as you heard at the outset, and algae are these photosynthetic organisms that are not plants exactly, but they result from this endosymbiosis. And I think of it as kind of like a turducken in a way, in that they've acquired this photosynthetic capability from cyanobacteria. But more about that from Alan, and so I don't embarrass myself much more. So they're all over the place, on land, at sea, and of course, around the aquatic systems. It's so important in our lives. And why should we care about them? It's because Alan cares about them, and that Alan is one of the brains behind Phycocosm, which delivers the information embedded in the diversity, the phylogenetic diversity of the algal tree of life that you can see here. Conceptually, they account for a huge amount of the planetary photosynthesis, carbon and nitrogen cycling, sustainable biofuels, the enzymes used to break down biomass, very diverse ecologically. They drive evolution, if you believe in evolution, which we do. And there's just more questions to be answered, and that's where you can come in and fill the gaps. So I'm hopeful that you'll join us and join Alan, and there's another opportunity working on another platform in the Genome's online database with TBK Ready. And really what Ready does is look at not just JGI genomes across the panoply of eukaryotes and archaea and microbes, that we also bring in data sets from the outside and curate them and look at the metadata, where they were sampled. And if there are mistakes in those metadata, then there are going to be mistakes in the interpretation of, in other words, the science that underlies those organisms' data sets. And why is that important, really? And what's the opportunity? I think of it kind of like a SETI at home equivalent in biology. In other words, crowdsourcing to high school students, for instance, or community college students who can analyze the metadata and make corrections and publish on these findings. So I will leave it there. I know I went a little bit long, Ari, but I know video, those electrons are fairly cheap at this moment. So I will stop sharing and see from Alan whether he has any comments he wants to contribute, because he is the expert behind the algal side of things. Or he can remain muted and we can read his lips.
Maybe better off if I stay muted. No, David, that was great. I think it encapsulates the excitement that we have here. This is a relatively new program at JGI. And so we really are just building up, and we're growing, and any opportunities to bring in outside talent would be, to bring in new ideas, that's definitely something that we would value.
We learn from the experience as well, and it helps
Yes.
shape how we deliver these data to the people who paid for it fundamentally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, David, I like that you ended it with, we learn from this as well. We are constantly learning from the different partnerships that we develop, and what it's like when Darcy gets to work with the high school students and like come back and develop lessons around it. We're constantly learning other ways that this can work. And I think, David, I appreciate the kind of the enthusiasm you brought for like, this is the place where you can come and help us, like right here. You can work with Alan, who is here, right? And this is the thing he's working on. He's excited about these questions and why algae is important. And if you're thinking of applying and you are majoring in MCB or in some other aspect of biology, plant biology maybe, even though algae are not plants, sorry. If you're interested at all, now you have kind of a go-to. Not only are you interested in doing research, but I kind of want to look at what Alan's doing. And you can say that in your application. You can be more specific.
We also have a plant data platform in Phytosome, and I'm working with the curators of those data sets. And hopefully by the time applications are in, we'll be able to offer an opportunity there in looking at plant genomics.
The Phytosome, our plant genomics project is cutting edge. That's a mature program, and that's really at the forefront. And so there are enormous opportunities there if you are interested in plants.
Wow, thank you so much, Alan, for coming and kind of advocating on your own behalf a little bit, just to say like, yeah, this is important. Come work with me. And so I appreciate that. And David, for giving us a little bit of background too about the building up on the hill and JGI and so there and David, what David shared are a lot of the posters that actually the students helped develop right from during last summer. So that was a great example of what you'll end up doing at the end of the summer is developing that poster with your mentor, with the guidance of your mentor to then give a talk around. And it's a lot of this is good practice, of course, for yourself, but also it's important to share what you've learned with the larger scientific community. That's so important in everything that we're doing. Okay, so I want to give Caitlin a chance now because Caitlin's probably going to answer most of the questions you have with the next couple of slides, which is like, okay, this is all great, but how do I apply? So Caitlin, I'm going to let you take it away from here.
Yeah, so I'm Caitlin and I'm the program coordinator for Calteach. So I deal a lot with the logistical side of things. And that's how we'll mostly collaborate during the Summer Research Institute. Our application process, in my opinion, is fairly straightforward, but I do want to stress that if at any point in your journey getting your application materials together, you have questions or issues or any roadblocks, we definitely encourage you to reach out to us and see if there's any way that we can help you through that. So you can find our application on our website, which is just simply calteach.berkeley.edu, underneath the Scholarships and Opportunities tab. And it's at the very bottom of that screen. And we are going to have our application for summer 2022 live next week. Yeah, and so a complete application will include the physical application, narrative responses, academic and research resume, unofficial transcripts from any college or university you have attended, and 2 letters of recommendation. And there is an application checklist on that first page, so I definitely encourage you to print that out or keep it somewhere and check it off as you go. Arif, do you mind popping to the next screen? So our application has 2 deadlines. Our priority deadline is February 1st. And then the overall application deadline to get it in is March 1st. And you will email all application materials to sri_calteach@berkeley.edu. And it is ideally, we will have all applications reviewed and decisions made between April and May. And so again, please, any questions, issues or concerns about any aspect of SRI, but particularly the application process, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. So Caitlin shared some information about where you can find the application. So we are small, but I still want to honor the fact that people might have questions. And so I will open it up to the floor for anyone to ask any questions. And we are all here so we can all answer from different perspectives if need be. So I do want to open that up for a moment. And if you feel more comfortable putting your question into the chat rather than unmuting, that's totally fine. Go ahead and type it into the chat. So I just want to give anyone here a chance to ask a question. And Darcy, Caitlin, David, Alan, Michael, anyone at all can ask a question here. It doesn't just have to be about the application process, but since we're all here, if you have a question, this would be an appropriate time to ask. So I'll wait a couple minutes for that. And then I'll end with our a slide that has all of our contact information for everyone, so you can email later if you need to. Michael, please let us know. Don't be shy. Let us know if you have a question about anything you've heard this evening, any of the slides you've seen.
Ari, I have more of a statement than a question, and that is, while the times are uncertain, obviously because of this worldwide health crisis, I wanted to say that with the Calteach student cohort at the JGI last year, we sought to incorporate them in the network of all of our students that we mentored virtually, really these last 3 years, because we moved from a facility in Walnut Creek in 2019 to Berkeley. So all of our 25 internships were all virtual. So we're getting a hang of this, but I am hopeful come summer that because we're so close to each other, that part of this can be in person. In other words, the enrichment activities that we scheduled and the seminars that we encourage students to participate in, to feel part of this network, this community, this ecosystem of research at Berkeley Lab is something that we'd be looking forward to.
David, thank you for sharing that. I think that's something that we, up until a couple of years ago, that's something that we also emphasize as just a really big part of building that community of practice with whatever lab you're in. I know that we've always encouraged the research mentors to invite the students or the teachers to everything, whether it's a job talk or a weekly lab session or a lab meeting or, visiting scholars coming and give a talk and everyone from the lab is interested and they come along. So not just the actual hands-on stuff in the lab or, at the terminals and trying to analyze data together, but also these other events and that you might be alluding to. I know that this summer, the plan is for everything to be in person on the Calteach, on the SRI side. Now, it will be somewhat lab dependent, of course, if those particular labs can also open to be in person, but we plan for everything to be in person, which means that the weekly seminars that we have will be all actually together in a room, if you can imagine that. I know, Darcy, we missed out on that last summer. So we will be all together in a room where you'll get to share and talk about your research with the other SRI participants. And we had, I know in the past, we've had many times where SRI participants would invite each other over to their labs and come and like hang out and see what's going on. So it was a little bit easier to build that community. And we're hoping that we are kind of inching back towards that again, David. I really am. And knowing that you're that close to us now, I'm hoping that I can come in and kind of bother you a little bit more in person and see what the work is going on and find out and learn more.
I'd certainly look forward to that, Ari, and I look forward to coaxing Alan into the integrative genomics building as well, because Alan is one of our many traditionally far-flung researchers. Alan resides in Seattle and has for his entire tenure, but with JGI, but comes down for weeks on end when there isn't otherwise health concerns out there. So I'm hopeful that come summertime that we can coax Alan down to be in person, but his colleagues with FICA-COSM and the other data platforms are local, and we'd welcome more of an integration of our interests up on the Hill.
Okay, so I don't want to put anyone on the spot to ask a question or to chat a question, but I do want to make sure we end with the slide here. If you have more questions, if I say this all the time to my students, Darcy, I've said this to you many times, I'm sure, that usually I think of the questions once the meeting ends, once the class is over and everyone is gone, and that's when the question hits me. So here's our contact information if that happens to be the case for you. Caitlin and I are here to answer any questions, of course, about the application process, about the course that you would take along with the research that you're doing. And there's our contact info and number. Darcy said that she was good enough to answer any questions if you would like to know more from the student perspective, kind of the ins and outs, what it is, what's the day-to-day like. And David's information is here as well if you want to know more specifically about the projects that Alan has going on or other projects at the Joint Genome Institute. David would be your perfect go-to there to find out more information. And if you just want to know a little bit more about how they're using data science, because I wouldn't be able to explain that very well. So David is your person for that. So I wanted to thank everyone for coming. Thank you all. If you're watching the recording later and you have questions, again, use these and please contact us with questions. We really excited to get a strong group of applicants. We do every summer, and I don't expect anything different, but we want to help you in the process. Sometimes things get a little confusing. You're not sure what the expectations are. Please talk to us. We can help you with all of that. So thank you. And David, Darcy, Alan, Caitlin, thank you all for coming and speaking and giving your time and your insight. I think it'll be really valuable for everyone else to hear this. I know that Michael, you are here. Thank you for coming, and thank you for taking the time to find out about the project. Alan, thank you for coming and sharing your enthusiasm and for making sure that David was on track with what he was talking about when it came to algae. And so yes, so thank you all for coming. Is there anything that any of you want to share? You can go, by the way, you don't have to stay any longer. But I will hang out for a minute if anyone wants to share anything, any last questions or comments.